Following Denmark's devastating loss in the Second Schleswig War of 1864, two Danish brothers, John and Peter Jensen, decide to abandon their ravaged homeland in search of a better life across the Atlantic. They immigrate to America, hoping to rebuild their lives on the rough, unforgiving frontier. For 7 long and arduous years, the brothers labor relentlessly to make a living and establish themselves in the harsh new land. During that time, John endures a painful separation from his beloved wife Marie and their young son Kristian, who had remained behind in Denmark. The endless years apart leave John emotionally scarred, and his only comfort comes from the dream of finally reuniting with his family. By 1871, that long-awaited moment finally arrives. Peter tells him he has a few errands to take care of in town, but will rejoin them soon. So John, Marie, and Kristian set off for home in a stagecoach that carries them across the lonely and barren landscape. However, their peaceful reunion soon turns into a nightmare when 2 dangerous men climb aboard the coach. One of them is Paul Deleru, brother of the notorious outlaw leader Henry Deleru. Recently released from prison, Paul is cold, intimidating, and quick to menace Marie, who, unable to speak English, cannot understand his crude remarks. He offers her alcohol and continues to harass her, his behavior growing more aggressive and threatening by the minute. When he attempts to touch Marie, John steps in, warning him firmly. Paul's partner draws a gun on John as the situation escalates. In a desperate attempt to protect his family, John quietly instructs Marie in Danish to bite Paul's ear. In the ensuing struggle, John manages to grab the assailant's weapon, but Paul seizes young Kristian and presses a knife to his throat, ordering John to jump off the moving coach or watch his family die. Helpless, John is thrown from the vehicle, left behind in the dark wilderness. When he finally regains his strength and follows the trail, John discovers Kristian's lifeless body lying beside the road. Heartbroken beyond measure, he collapses in grief, clutching his son's small frame as he weeps uncontrollably. But sorrow quickly transforms into a cold, burning rage. Drawing upon his old military training, John tracks the stagecoach, kills one of the thugs, and then hunts down Paul through the night. Begging for his life, Paul insists he never harmed the boy, but John, unmoved and consumed by vengeance, executes him without mercy. The next morning, Peter discovers John mourning beside the bodies of both Marie and Kristian. The brothers embrace in silence, shattered by the loss. Now, with their family gone, all they have left is each other. The story then shifts to Black Creek, a bleak frontier town where the ruthless Colonel Henry Deleru, a former Union officer turned gang leader, arrives with his men. He confronts Mayor Nathan Keene about 2 corpses found nearby, one of whom is revealed to be his brother Paul. Enraged, Deleru gives the townsfolk until noon to find the killer or deliver 2 of their own for execution. When no one confesses, he selects his victims himself, an elderly woman named Mrs. Borowski, who owns the gun shop, and a disabled man, her son. Despite her prayers, Deleru kills them both without hesitation. And when her grandson Wojtek cries in anguish, the sadistic outlaw shoots another innocent man just to prove his authority. Meanwhile, John and Peter, known locally for their expert marksmanship, become the subject of suspicion as they travel west. Upon reaching Black Creek, John visits Mayor Keene to sell his land, only to be offered half its true value, $145, because of Deleru's control over the town. Realizing with dread that the man he killed was Deleru's brother, John accepts the offer reluctantly, hiding the cash in his boot, as Keene advises. As John exited the mayor's office, a couple recognized him as the man they had seen in the carriage that night, seated across from his family. In an attempt to save themselves from Henry's vengeance, the woman hurried to the sheriff and reported John's presence. As John Jensen prepared to leave, an uneasy feeling washed over him. The once bustling street had suddenly gone quiet, and in the distance, he spotted 3 armed men advancing toward him. Realizing something was wrong, John dashed into a nearby alley, but ran straight into a carefully laid trap. His escape fell apart when the sheriff shot his horse, leaving him stranded. Before long, John was seized and dragged to the police station, and soon after, his brother Peter was also brought in. The detective responsible for Peter's arrest didn't stop at capturing him. He beat him up before throwing him into a cell. John, piecing everything together, realized the detective was part of the scheme. Without hesitation, John confessed to killing the thug, hoping to secure Peter's release, but the sheriff refused to bargain and kept Peter locked up for allegedly attacking an officer. The following day, Henry Deleru's men swaggered into town, their arrogance on full display. They tied John up before the townspeople and marched him away as everyone watched in silence. At Deleru's camp, John finally came face to face with Henry and the thug's widow, Madeline. Wanting to protect his wife and son's memory, John painfully recounted the events that led to the killing. Knowing what kind of man her late husband truly was, Madeline didn't seek revenge. She simply gave John a look of understanding and left. But Henry, eager to impress Madeline, decided to spare John's life for the moment. Later that afternoon, the town's mayor arrived at the camp, not to check on John's condition, but to ask, "Can I have his boots?" Clearly after the cash John had hidden from his land sale. Back in town, as the chapel bells rang and people went to pray, only the deputy remained behind to guard Peter. Frustrated by Peter's constant sarcasm and mockery, the deputy eventually snapped. That night, Henry, now getting closer to Madeline, promised her they'd leave together once he secured control of the land. But an intruder had already slipped into his camp unnoticed. A patrolling guard noticed a lantern flickering in the distance, but when he went to investigate, he was ambushed and killed. Seizing the opportunity, Peter freed John, hid him, and then ambushed the returning patrol, taking them out one by one. As rain poured down, Peter fled on horseback with an unconscious John slumped across the saddle. Furious at being deceived, Henry sent his men in pursuit. During the chase, John kept slipping off the horse, forcing Peter to make a heartbreaking decision. Knowing they couldn't outrun their pursuers, he hid John among some rocks and led the men away, sacrificing himself so his brother could live. By morning, John awoke weak and parched, drinking from a muddy puddle before hearing horses approach. He hid, gun in hand, only to see Peter's lifeless body being dragged behind a horse. Having already lost his family, John was crushed to lose his brother too. Fueled by rage, he vowed to avenge everyone he had lost. John returned to Deleru's camp, finding it in disarray, guards dead and the safe emptied. Madeline, the only one who knew the combination, had fled on a train. Her brief moment of freedom ended when Henry's men stopped the train and dragged her back. Despite his earlier affection for her, Henry handed Madeline over to his men to keep their loyalty. Meanwhile, John, nursed back to health by a kind farm widow, set out for revenge. He confronted the mayor, forcing him to confess his involvement with Deleru, and after getting the truth, John ensured the corrupt official wouldn't trouble anyone again. Teaming up with Voigt Borowski, who had his own grudge against Deleru, John put his plan into motion. Together they infiltrated the camp, setting fires and ambushing the guards. During the chaos, Voigt returned with kerosene to help John, but was fatally shot before he could escape. Even in death, he managed to spill the fuel, spreading more flames through the camp. Amid the inferno, John fought his way through Deleru's men and confronted Henry in a final showdown. As Henry aimed his gun, a shot rang out. Madeline, still defiant, had fired first, wounding him and giving John the chance to finish him off. When the smoke cleared, the sheriff appeared, trying to take credit for the victory. But John and Madeline, now survivors bound by loss and resilience, stood together.